Hello and welcome to our session of Milk Minutes. As many as you may know, we conduct Milk Minutes every fourth Monday of the month at 6 p.m. live streams on our Healthy Start Facebook page. Before I dive too deep into our conversation today, I want to give a brief overview about what Healthy Start Center for Urban Breastfeeding is. So, also known as the CUP, which is Healthy Start's initiative to increase breastfeeding rates among the Black families in Allegheny County. And by doing so, we have our Milk Minutes, which is our community education series. And the great part about it is that you do not have to be enrolled into the CUP to participate or watch our Milk Minutes. So before we dive into infant mortality, I want to give a brief introduction to Kandis. Hey, Kandis, how are you today?
I'm well.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. So how did you come into being familiar about breastfeeding? Tell us about your breastfeeding experience.
I would say my interest in breastfeeding started probably in my teenage years, and just hearing different stories from like my family, my mom, my sister, some other individuals, just the lack of support that they had received kind of sparked my interest in lactation, breastfeeding and whatnot. And I don't know, it kind of blossomed from there. But yeah, I've been in the public health space probably for about the last little over 10 years, and in the maternal health space for the last, I'll say a little over 8 years. But my breastfeeding journey, I birthed two little ones. And so I have a little girl, she's 6, and I have a little boy, Ezra, he is 11 months. And I will say those breastfeeding journeys were not like polar opposites. With my daughter, everything was good. I really didn't have any challenges. We had one little hiccup with latch, but I feel like more of the support that I needed during that time was like social support. You first time parent, even if you got the knowledge and you still
Yes.
So my sister definitely championed me during that time. With my son, it was a little different story. If I didn't get that latch just right, there were some challenges along the way. But I will say, I just finished my CLC training, and in clinical, they taught us how to do an oral assessment. So of course, got me a baby. I did an oral assessment, and come to find out, he has a tongue tie. And nobody diagnosed it or anything. And so at his 9 month, I brought it up to my pediatrician, and she's like, "Oh, he does have a tongue tie." And I'm like, I've been struggling trying to figure out what's going on, so I feel like for my second journey, I think a little more clinical support, would have been, in line. But I mean, overall, so far it's been okay. Still breastfeeding my 11-month-old, and my daughter, we went for 2.5 years. So
that is really exciting, and congratulations on your IBCLC. That's really a huge accomplishment. I really want to talk about, for the people that aren't aware about what infant mortality is and what that is exactly. So infant mortality is when a baby dies before their first birthday. So infant mortality is the rate of which there's a lot of factors that contribute to infant mortality. There's 5 leading causes, and which are birth defects, preterm births, low birth weight, SIDS, also known as sudden infant death syndrome, maternal pregnancy complications or injuries. I think that's very important to know, that there's multiple different factors that contribute to infant mortality, and it's not as uncommon as we may think it is. And that's kind of unfortunate, but that's why we're here to really bring some awareness to infant mortality and how we can change that. So I know breastfeeding is considered one of the major factors to help eliminate infant mortalities. Can you give us a little bit of information in regards to how breastfeeding can help that?
Yeah, so I want to like kind of focus in specifically to like preterm birth, low birth weight, and then like sudden infant death syndrome, because the some of the other causes are have very specific measures, right? Like if it's a specific birth defect, then usually it's because of that, but with the preterm birth and the sudden infant death syndrome, there's some variable there, and so that's where the breastfeeding really shines. And so specifically with our babies that are like, um, excuse me, with our babies that are born a little bit earlier, typically preterm, they would say around like, a little before 37 weeks, so our earlier babies and then our smaller babies, right? Our babies with lower birth weights, they're more at risk for infections. And so a lot of times during that period, the things that put them the most at risk for infant mortality is contracting some type of infection, whether it be respiratory or, in their gut, their GI tracts, so different things like that. And so specifically with breastfeeding, right? A lot of times we don't, like when we think of breast milk, we're thinking about food. Like people are always like, oh, so how are you choosing to feed your baby is a common thing that you're going to hear, after you give birth, and or before. And but human milk, like breast milk, is a living liquid, and it's not just the nutrition that you're getting from that. The baby's also getting tons of antibodies and immune boosting properties, and immune building benefits that are going to protect this baby, right? So obviously if your baby is at a higher risk for infections and you're helping boost their immune system, right, it's going to give them a better chance and help reduce their risk for infant mortality as it relates to that. So that's one thing, like one way I always like to think about it is like, it's not just food. It's a little bit
Right.
more than that. It's a little more special. There's a reason why they call it that gold. So, so specifically, I did want to mention real quick that like our milk changes, right? So the milk you
Mhm.
get in the beginning, is different from the milk at 1 month, at 6 months, at 1.5 years, right? Your milk is constantly adapting to the needs of your baby. The same thing happens if your baby gets a cold at 1 month, right? So at 1 month, your baby's sick, get a cold, your milk actually adjusts to not only provide that nutrition, but also help fight that bug. And so that's a way to kind of like really just reiterate the fact that like it has those immune boosting properties and it consistently adapts. It's almost like medicine.
Yes.
Look, I like to call it medicine, but I don't have nothing published. So.
Right. That's okay. Maybe one day.
No, not yet. Um, and I think one thing that also speaks volumes to breast milk is that hospitals pay a pretty penny to be able to have that donor breast milk from the milk banks.
Yes.
That speaks volumes, you know what I mean, for our NICUs. So, you know what I mean? It does, show the reference, to the benefit of breast milk, even if it isn't directly from mom, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and I did also want to briefly mention that the American Academy of Pediatrics states that human milk is the optimal nutrition for babies with low birth weights. And obviously it does decrease the risk of different complications related to prematurity. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Um, Jumping into sudden infant death syndrome or sudden unexplained infant death syndrome. So the American Academy of Pediatrics also recommends breastfeeding as a strategy. Now the research isn't like really clear in regards to like what exactly with breastfeeding is protecting the child, but they know from the research that it is incredibly protective and it reduces the risk significantly of the child, experiencing infant mortality. And so with, I'm sorry, I should have brought some water up here. But specifically, some of the things that they bring up is that breastfed babies tend to be a little easier to rouse, like easier to wake, and they think that is something that through that process, right, they're able to better regulate and wake arouse themselves, like if they stop breathing or something along those lines. And so that's like more of a protective factor that they see in breastfed babies. And then also, like we had mentioned, right, those immune boosting properties, but also it supports brain development. And so obviously our brains control everything, and so when you're providing that for your baby, right, you're promoting the best development possible. In addition to that, with breastfeeding, right, it's automatic skin to skin. You're doing skin to skin if baby's at the breast. And so we know that skin to skin also helps regulate the baby's heart rate. The baby's heart rate, and also their breathing. So it helps them to get into a good rhythm, right? And it helps them to like take a breath, you know what I mean, when they need to, and things like that. So those are some of the things that they, in research, like are thinking like these are the contributing factors that are coming from breastfeeding that are protective in regards to that. So all of those things reducing infant mortality.
Yes, and I think that's very important. Like you mentioned so many important things, especially one that the skin to skin helps regulate their breathing, their heart rate. It's not just regulating their temperature, it's way more than that, as well as the milk is not just just milk nutrients. Like it has the antibodies, like you said, it can help fight off so many different infections, sicknesses. And that is so, so important because there's so many good elements that is included in breastfeeding. So not just because we're promoting breastfeeding that we're discouraging formula, but we are saying that this is the best line of nutrition. I know that we've seen in recent data in the Pediatric Academy that the most recent data shows that 5.4 infant deaths per 1,000 has occurred in the year of 2021. What's your thoughts on that? That's like kind of crazy.
It is. It is. To be honest, I like, in my mind, like it's also like one thing, like, I mean, of course we'd be remiss not to, mention like the disparity though, that's still evident.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And if you don't know like what disparity is, like very briefly, it's just a difference in outcomes between groups. And we see that, children of color are more at risk, you know what I mean? And specifically Black children, you know what I mean? So yeah, but I mean, look, progress, we gotta make progress. Like, and we're gonna celebrate progress. So
we are going to celebrate it because the goal for 2023 or our goal for 2030 for healthy people is for it to be 5.0 for every 1,000. So hopefully we can reach that goal. We can knock it out. So for me personally, a little bit of transparency. And I don't know if you can hear my son in the background, but I had him in April and he had a knot in his umbilical cord. And that to me was like so, so scary because you never know what can happen. Infant mortality is so, so important. And it's so great that we have conversations and we have different outlets to really vocalize different concerns and be able to talk to people about it because everybody's experience is different. And I'm glad to say that he's here with me today. That could have been different, but just having that knot in his umbilical cord, he was born early. I had to be induced. He was only 5 pounds. When he was born, he was like limp, so it was very, very, it could have been very traumatic. But that's just to say that counting kicks is one way also to help decrease the infant mortality, to make sure that you're filling your baby, make sure you're checking, going to your checkups consistently, making sure you're taking care of yourself. Those are very important things to always remember as well too. So I know that you're a CLC as well. I heard you mention that. Have you experienced counseling anybody who has lost a child or had a baby in the NICU? Any complications of that sort?
So not I was gonna say not enough, like not like directly supporting like someone who's lost in regards to like, like, I mean, of course, like providing like, like education in regards to like caring for your breast afterwards and things like that. But that main focus, is always like your mental, spiritual health, like your just, your well-being. And it's definitely traumatic and it's hard, and and then also like our NICU moms, like, it's just it's a struggle, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of lack of support, in that area. It's very overwhelming time, you know what I mean? And also, like I think, but here, let me go back. It's an overwhelming time, but what I do find is that people who have the support they need, like especially more so like from like their providers and things like that, their
Mm,
experience, their perception of the experience is a lot different than those who don't have the support,
okay.
the proper support, from professionals. And so there's definitely some variability. And I think that one of the things that I think is like really important is like, I mean, you can't plan, right? You can't know that any of this stuff is going to happen. You can't know if your child is going to have a knot in their umbilical cord. You can't know, like, you know what I mean? You can't plan that early, a tongue tie or things like that. But what you can do is I'll always encourage people to just put together your breastfeeding dream team. And it don't have to be
Yes.
big. It can just be two people, like the one person, just your social support. That person doesn't have to breastfeed. They just need to agree to champion you and support you the whole way
Yes.
through. And then the other person is who are you going to call when you have questions? And I'm talking clinical questions. And Cub is like a wonderful like opportunity, you know what I mean? A wonderful place to have, because it's like they have support 24 hours, you know what I mean? So it's just like that's necessary, I was gonna say your breastfeeding questions don't usually come at 1 p.m. on a
Right.
Wednesday. It's usually like 1 a.m. on a Saturday. So
Yes. True. Like you have to be ready.
absolutely.
Yes, and I think that is so great. Thank you again, Candice. I really appreciate all your insight. This was an amazing topic. Once again, just bring some awareness to infant mortality. Count those kicks. Make sure you take care of yourself. And let's be a part of that change. So if you know anybody who has experienced any breastfeeding challenges, has a baby in the NICU, or overall just needs breastfeeding support, please reach out to the Cub. We are here to help you. We are here to support. Thank you for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next month, Monday at 6 p.m.